Why do our cities fall apart even with so many Christians? I had two conversations this week I want to talk with you about, which really are in my mind. And before I start, welcome to Big Tree Tales, where we discuss faith, politics, and society. So, and I had a meeting. First, I started with the first meeting uh, with someone who's, well, let's say, who's important in the security apparatus of our city, right? So we met with a bunch of guys and we talked, and he asked, "Hey, I would like the churches to be involved in security and helping with crime in our city." And I reached out to churches, and so the churches were not so eager to step out and help. And we're not talking about, of course, not about police work or whatever, but just to support in prayer or be there or help. And I thought, why is that so? He said, we need support. We need community. We need people to step up, and we would hope that Christians would step up and be there to support our city. And I think many of you, when you watch it, I mean, many Christians are doing great jobs. I mean, especially about when it's about homeless, feeding people. I've seen, I mean, many people feeding people. Like, this is a big thing. Or even you bought someone food, or you pass it out, or you pass out the gospel to people outside. And we see that in a way to show God's love. And I think it's really true. Um, but when it comes to actually, let's say, taking responsibility to for our community, like for our neighbors here where we live, like my right and next door neighbor, um, how are they doing? Even to know their name, maybe. I don't know. Ask yourself. Maybe first question: do you know the names of the guys who live across the street, right and left? Um, that's be your first thing. So it's not a problem of police that crime is going up, and we see that with drugs flowing in the city. Uh, we see that here in Washington. It's definitely a problem. Of course, it comes through our borders. We need to tackle this. Washington is very low on crime in this way. They don't criminalize it. They want to decriminalize all this drug thing. And when you have fentanyl and all heroin and all these opioids, it's actually killing people. I mean, if you see that, if you walk around downtown and you see the people on the street, how they actually are destroying themselves, it's really painful, right? It's for me. We're having a church downtown, and when I step out of my office there and go on the street, like 2 meters, there are people dying, there are people fighting, there are people sitting there the whole day in winter, freezing. And so we always think, like, what can we do? So how can we start doing it? And if um, it's not something only you say, oh, if there's a problem, you just call the police, you just want to see them do things. I mean, yes, they should, and they are doing this. But what about the officers? What about the people who actually do this? Do they get our support? And it turned out that the churches were. They said, well, could you as churches help us to um, do our work better? And I think that was a great question, because it's something, it's very deep in our theology rooted sometimes, that faith has nothing to do with which is outside my personal realm. So it's Jesus and me, and I say sometimes little, that's not really fair, but like little Jesus and little me, and the two of us are doing just fine. And so we um, we don't really engage in what's going on outside. Of course, Americans have their little guns, and we can defend ourselves if someone breaks in our house. But why is trust so breaking down in our cities? And now people are pulling back, and neighborhoods don't function like they used to. Um, Problems getting bigger, not smaller. And yes, it's definitely that I think people lose faith, and I think this is ultimately a consequence of when a nation, when a people group loses its common faith, then neighborhoods divide, families break up and break down, of course. But our institutions, they can't do it alone. They can't just say, okay, well, we just wait on City Hall to do all that. I don't think it's just going to work. So we can say, well, then we're going to break down, or what do we do? Especially as Christians, what do we do? Jesus said that we are the salt and the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light to the world. What does it mean? It means we are visible, and not only through prayer. That's a good thing. I really encourage prayer for our cities. Let's do this. Step up and engage. Even if we start praying for our cities, Lord, please have mercy. And we pray maybe for certain the people who work in our cities, maybe our police officers who actually are stepping up and doing hard work, but also other people who work for the good of the city, business people, right? So if you have a Christian business, then yes, you should make an impact. You should be visible in what you do and showing your faith, because it's ultimately not only the service you provide, it's are we stepping up in faith? Because God's perspective is, I found that like Jeremiah is one of the good examples. Like seek the peace and the prosperity of the city, he tells them, right? Jeremiah to the nation of Israel, like, because if they prosper, you too will prosper. It's very simple, right? If a city is doing good, like the people in the city are doing good, just fine, and that's with security, that's with business, that's with health, that's with families, that's with education, all that stuff. Um, so God doesn't really say, "Oh, withdraw, protect yourself, but He says, like, take responsibility for your city. I know that's maybe that as a European, I always think it's maybe this is so European. I'm not sure. Is that really an American thing? Like, is it? It's not so much the American dream, right? It's just saving our nation because it's a great nation. I love America, and you guys, like I say that to people who watch maybe say, oh, America is so oppressive and it's so bad and whatever, so racist, so blah blah blah. Well, no, it's not. I think that you might say that, but there's so many places in the world which are so much worse. Honestly, it's why are all these people trying to come to the US? It's not only because of money, it's because of safety, it's because of a future we have here. And we shouldn't give it up lightly. Say, oh, America's going down and I just care for myself. That's not good. So it should be clear. So I had another conversation. I said about two conversations. So the second was um, I met a young woman, and she said, oh, Tom, it's actually a good thing when the the city goes down a little bit, because then faith will be more visible. Like, we will shine as light in the darkness. I said, okay, well, it sounds spiritual, right? So light shines in the darkness, and when it gets more dark, your light as a Christian might shine more. I said, well, someone moved here. She moved. I moved here from a bad part of the country. It was even worse. He said, "Oh, why did you move here?" And she said, "Oh, because, it was really hard to live there. Crime was so high, and I felt Spokane was a better option." I said, "Well, so why did you then move?" And because you could have there been even a greater light to your surrounding than you'd be here, because it's way darker. And that became like, oh, of course, it was an argument, maybe it was not so fair, but if we hold this view that if it gets darker here, it's ultimately somehow better, and we're gonna win until the most holy of holies. That's typically what, like, it's sometimes, not in this case, but sometimes it involves this, like, oh, I'm super holy, we just need to pray all day. We just need to, God will elevate his anointed ones. I don't think so. I think the answer is then typically, oh, we should just have more, we need to be more fervent prayers. There would be more sincere discipleship. We should be more pressing in on our faith. And while this is somehow true, it's somehow a lie, because it doesn't happen. I can say that, and probably you as well, if you're watching. You're doing your best, right? You give, let's say, typically a person gives 100%. You just don't typically give a 50%. You do all you can. And just to tell someone, well, you just work harder, even spiritually. You can do it for a week or two. You can, okay, now I'm really pressing in, and but I don't think it's sustainable. So the core issue is, when our world gets darker, there needs to be people who are saying, I develop a vision for my city. And we're doing this here with Big Tree, and we're coming up, like, thinking of all the areas in our society where we need to step up and need to show Christ in our cities. And that's not only security, that's health, that's education, that's all the political arena, and of course the churches, many other parts, arts, media, family, policies, all that, where we want to see Christ being visible in our city. Because I think ultimately you are salt and light. I am salt and light. And Jesus never called us just only to individually evangelize people. The Great Commission is actually not about people, not about individuals, let's say this, but it's go therefore make disciples of all what? Nations. Nations are groups, because faith is always meant to be a group thing. If a group, let's say, put it very simple, if you live in a family and one partner is not a Christian and the other is, it's a struggle, because they have different value systems. It's complicated. You argue and you fight over your faith. And the same is with a city or a nation. So yes, we should be one in faith. You can't do that. You can make that, but starting first, I think once you realize, well, this is the challenge, so then the solution comes more clear. So the key line is, Christians are not called to survive in the darkness. They're called to push back. We're called to push back. You are called to push back. And it's not just, okay, Tom, you say that as a motivational thing. No, Jesus, actually, the Bible calls us to push back. You are the light. And yeah, you are. Maybe you start even, like, you don't have to focus on the whole city. Maybe just start on your neighborhood. Do you know your right and left neighbor, or the neighbor across the street? Do you even know your names? Maybe we just start in that. Just we know people who's even living with us? Just the house opposite of the street. I have a great guy living opposite of my house here. So and I know him, and we help each other. So my block, and once you start with that, you develop different thinking. That yes, I'm gonna get involved. Yes, I'm gonna help. I think Americans have that great strength of helping. I think that's good. I love America for this. What about if when we meet, we ask our friends, hey, what can we do to improve our neighborhood? How can we make Christ visible? Yes, it can start with prayer, but it maybe does not end with prayer. I want to start a series to talk about how can we change our cities? What are the different people groups in our city ought to do? What could we do? Not in terms of you must do something, but I would like to see my city so not only survive but thrive. I want to see that. I don't agree that we should wait for doomsday. We shouldn't. So thank you for watching. If you are interested in this kind of topic, we will talk about this more. And we have some projects which will come. So I thank you for watching. If you like, then subscribe it, comment, like your comments to hear what you think about it. Thanks for watching.